Flinders Petrie was working in Egypt from the 1880s and up until about the late 1920s. He's a major figure. He's known by some as the father of modern scientific archaeology. Working on an excavation at the time of Flinders Petrie would have been quite different in some respects to today, but in other respects also fairly similar. A lot more emphasis was given to what were thought to be very interesting burials, maybe with a large number of finds. One example would of course be the Qurna burial. In Petrie's time, it was much more common for huge sites to be excavated. You would have very large numbers of local workers, so you maybe would have hundreds of people working in one time. Whereas today, it's much more likely that we will target a specific area on a site, which we can do with geophysical survey, and we can go in and excavate very specific contexts for very specific reasons. In Petrie's time, objects left Egypt, they went to museum collections. After the excavation, all the finds were put out, and it would then be decided which objects were going to stay in Egypt and which objects would leave the country.
Today in Egypt, now the law prevents that any object found on the excavations to travel outside of Egypt. So the objects stay in Egypt, get exhibited in different new museums that Egypt is building at the moment, or they are let in storage for study, for research purposes for different scholars from everywhere in the world. At the time of Petrie, when he started working in Egypt in 1882, there weren't many Egyptians that had access to a university education. Ahmed Kamel, we consider him the first Egyptian Egyptologist, and although he got this education and he got some little chances to get educated abroad, he wasn't very lucky to get jobs, for example, because at the time the museums in Egypt were led by foreign archaeologists. Ahmed Kamel, for example, tried to set his own school of Egyptology, which gave us the second generation of Egyptian Egyptologists, and many of them continued in the field and led their own excavations, like Salim Hassan, for example, and his work in Giza and Saqqara.
Something that we are seeing changing today is the recognition also for these people. So often when we look back at photographs of the archaeological missions, we see the names of the Western archaeologists on the back of photographs, but we very rarely see any of the names of these Egyptian colleagues. And this is starting to change. Petrie noted that, of course, archaeology is a destructive process. Whatever we excavate is gone. So it's really important that all of this is published. So we're very careful today. We will have various photographs, 3D images, scans, records, our very precise publications, so that people in the future can come back to this and look to this again. It's very important to communicate what we're finding to people who are living in the local areas, because these are the people whose heritage it is, but also these are the people who have the prospect to protect them for the future.
In the future, I would like to see more archaeological missions, or more people in general working on the aspect of outreach with the local communities. For example, in the site of Shudb, a village called Shudb, where there is an archaeological mission where we are doing sessions of community engagement. This workshop for us was overwhelming because we didn't expect this high level of engagement from the youth. They were asked to imagine if they are going to design a flyer for getting the visitors through their village. So they started to think of places that we even don't know, because they are more related to the modern history of the village that we didn't yet study. Most of Egyptians are most of the time proud of their heritage and their very long history, having ancient Egypt one of the most ancient civilizations in the whole world.